It's a pleasure to welcome His Royal Highness and the Prince Daniel's Fellowship as well, all of you. Thank you for making it a priority, not just to see Seattle, but to connect to the deeper community and the culture of innovation and everything that we think that Seattle and Washington State represents. We have a wonderful, brief event tonight, and there'll be a lot of welcomes and a lot of introductions. I want to take just a very brief moment. The spirit of innovation, the history, the entrepreneurial energy that is deeply represented in the Seattle culture, the Washington State culture, is so tied to the Nordic community and to the broader sense of passion and spirit of sustainability and climate and all the work that the Swedish entrepreneurs represented here bring to life is something very special. And it's tied all the way to the history of our state, where the immigration and the connection is so authentic. And that relationship is deep, it's authentic, and it's represented by the Innovation Summit that we host here at the museum every year. It's represented by the community leaders, the thought leadership, and it's represented by our shared passion for action in areas like climate and sustainability. It would be a deep honor for me if you would take just a brief moment to acknowledge some of my special colleagues on the U.S. side in terms of my gracious friends, my colleagues, elected officials. Please recognize my good friend, Senator Marco Lias, my good friend, Seattle City Council member Dan Strauss, and County Council member Jeannie Cole-Wells, and of course, our fabulous governor, Jay Inslee. Please welcome all of our guests. I would share for just a brief moment that the entrepreneurial energy that is symbolically represented in this building touches something very deep. It touches best practices from around the world in bringing sustainability to life. It touches the spirit of failure, of exploration, and failure of ideas and the need to change and grow and evolve. And I think from that humility, we all have come to see that really meaningful change is possible. We live in so much disequilibrium, a time of disequilibrium in the world. And having a moment of reflection, a moment to prioritize this work, to prioritize relationships, and to recognize our shared values, our shared connection, and the symbolic representation of being together in this room, in this museum, is a great honor. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to introduce you to our senior deputy mayor, who is the real deal, who runs our city, Deputy Mayor Monisha Harrell. Thank you so much.
Your Royal Highness, Madam Ambassador, Governor Inslee, and First Lady Trudy, distinguished guests, I'm honored to be here this evening to welcome the Prince Daniel's Fellowship delegation to Seattle. On behalf of Seattle's Mayor, Bruce Harrell, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all. We rolled out the weather for you today, so we just said no rain, not today. Our city is known for its global tech companies and rich startup culture. And your visit speaks to that reputation. It's a reputation built first on people. The global companies that call Seattle home attract an international workforce that makes our city a better place. In fact, Seattle is ranked as the 10th most innovative city in the world and the 9th best talent concentration in the world. So if I'm trying to sell you and you think that's what it sounds like, it's true. It's also built on partnerships that help make us the top 10 global startup ecosystem. The University of Washington to start, which was recently ranked as the most innovative public university in the world. You see a theme. Also, CoMotion Labs, helping incubate early stage startups, focusing on spin-offs from the university. We also have Greater Seattle Partners, promoting the Greater Seattle region to the world, and our Northwest seaports. I know somebody's got business with seaports, which together ranked as the fifth busiest port in the U.S. for 2020. And let's not forget our world-class cultural spaces, like the National Nordic Museum.
Your Royal Highness, Governor, Deputy Mayor, and dear, 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 dear friends. It's so fantastic to be back in Seattle. I remember 2 very fine evenings in this hall, feels like now a long time ago, and let's just take the time to remember that we've been through a pandemic, but that we can actually gather again. I think it's just marvelous. So last time, I think was the inauguration of this hall, and then we had Crown Princess Mary of Denmark here. And now you might think that I only travel with royals. Not the case, but it's fantastic that Prince Daniel has taken his time and put so much focus on entrepreneurship and also strengthening the bonds between Sweden and the United States and this area. So I think you will speak to that later, but it's really great that you have taken time to do this. Well, so it's fantastic to be in this very creative region. We just came from San Francisco, and they, of course, think that they are the #1 place to be in. When we talked here today, we understood that this is the #1 place to be in. And the people we talked to, they also said, oh, here we are a bit late, we're a bit more humble. We don't talk so much about our successes, but we're really, super sharp. And maybe that's a testament to that there were so many Scandinavians coming to this region, because we don't brag. It's, when we say this is how we do it in Sweden, it actually means that this is how everyone should do it, and then everything will be just great. So I think this really shows the historic and cultural connection between Sweden, Scandinavia, and the Nordic countries and this region. So, as I'm here, this is probably the best place. Tonight we are going to recognize Erik Nelson, our fantastic friend, and who is really, I think, instrumental to us being in this house tonight. I'm sure there are a lot of people that have helped you to get where we are, but it's really been thanks to you. So later on, Prince Daniel and myself will present Erik with the Royal Order of the Polar Star in recognition for all the achievements that you have done with this museum and making it a reality. First, of course, I can't help saying a few words about Ukraine. It's easy to forget that Europe is in a state of war as we speak. And even though Washington State is on the other side of the Atlantic or the Pacific, you are also a neighbor to Russia. And of course, there's no fighting on this side of the continent, but still, it's something we have in common. And that Russia has attacked and unprovokedly attacked and illegally attacked the Ukraine is, of course, beyond comprehension. And it's really Russia alone that is responsible for all the human suffering that we are seeing right now. So my country, Sweden, and all countries in Europe and the United States and across the globe are condemning the Russian actions, and I think we are in a different world once this hopefully soon will be over for the sake of the Ukrainian people. But I think this crisis or war has really demonstrated the very close ties between Europe and the United States and how important it is that we stay together, that our values, we work to promote our values of democracy and human rights against those who are not favoring those two words. Grateful, and my country is very grateful for all the cooperation that we've had with the United States, and I would just like to tell you Americans how proud you should be of your intelligence community that has really seen what President Putin planned to do and gave us the intelligence about what was going to happen. We didn't believe it at all times because I think it was hard for us to realize that there was a risk of a war in our vicinity. But that was fantastic how that was handled by the administration. So you should really, really, really be proud of that. That we have a very long relationship. It goes back 400 years. The first Swedes and Finns came to the Delaware River and built ourselves a fortress. Unfortunately, we only lasted 15 years till the Dutch beat us. Otherwise, maybe this country would have been speaking Swedish, who knows? But since those days, of course, the cultural, economic, and scientific contributions of the people of the Nordic countries and Sweden as well have contributed greatly to the development in this country, and particularly, I think, in this region. And I think we still do, actually. There are a lot of companies here that try to make it in this region. I hope we can attract more. I hope we can attract more companies from this region to Sweden. I just invited the deputy mayor to come with a delegation to Sweden next summer, and she said she would go to look at cutting-edge housing for the future. And no, so we are, an innovative force to be reckoned with. We are, after Switzerland, the second most innovative country in the world. And if I should compare us to the city we actually don't talk about, but Stockholm, actually, when it comes to unicorns, is second only to Silicon Valley. So we have a great innovative capacity in Sweden, and the companies and the people you see here represented in the Prince Daniel Fellowship delegation, they are really the faces of all that innovative force that we have in Sweden. So really hope you talk a lot to them and lure them over to your city as well. So I am very happy that Sweden has such a fantastic representative here in Washington State in a form of our honorary consul Petra Hilleberg and her team. So thank you for everything that you are doing for us. And I know you have a strong mentor here in Lars. Where are you, Lars? There you are. So thank you for your services as well. And of course, maybe this is where we have our largest heritage. And if Sweden was a country that had national day parades, I am sure it would also be our biggest national day parade, like the Norwegians have outside Norway. Now, we don't do national parades, but still. I've heard that there are over 200,000 people in this region that have Swedish heritage, and that's quite something. So, this is why I think Swedes feel really at home here, and of course the tech arena that is so flourishing in this region. So it's fantastic to be back, and thank you so much for welcoming us with open arms. And now it's my great honor to give the floor to Prince Daniel. And Prince Daniel is a champion in so many ways. He is very engaged in Swedish entrepreneurship, and that's why we are here today. He's also very engaged in youth and health, and I hope health for elderly as well, maybe. So I can count on your engagement as I get older. No, but please, Prince Daniel, it's an honor. And if I would have had a glass, I would have said skål, but skål to you.
Governor Inslee, Your Excellencies, Mr. Nelson, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so pleased to be here tonight and see all of you here. It's a true privilege. If given the chance to speak about Sweden, I love to do that. Maybe, I don't know, our ambassador, she has been bragging so much, so I don't know if you can take more bragging tonight. But so if I get the chance, I will do that. If you go back 150 years, Sweden was one of the poorest countries in Europe. Actually, we were starving. The combination of poverty and desire for greater choice drove over 1 million Swedes to cross the Atlantic in search of a better life in America. The exodus of Swedes was 20% of the population at that time. The good news is that you welcomed us here. You helped us to realize our dreams by allowing us to make America our new adopted land and chosen home for future generations. The open cooperation between the newly arrived Swedes and the settled Americans helped to form a new foundation of friendship between our two countries. Today, the United States is still home to the next generations of Andersons, Carlsons, Swansons, and Nelsons. The more than 4.5 million Swedish descendants are living testimony to their ancestors' courage and curiosity to get a better life for themselves and their families. Swedish emigration, I think, was one of the things which led to a very strong belief in free trade and to an openness to what the world had to offer. Even though Sweden was far from the center of Europe, we had several companies operating internationally very early on. Because of this, and because almost every family had a relative or a friend that had emigrated to the United States, we quickly became used to the ideal of a global society. And also we realized that we could never survive if we only produced goods for the domestic market. The focus on export lifted our economy and our quality of life, and it's no different today, with trade representing almost half of our GDP. Another value that developed our society is trust. We've been talking about trust a lot these days, but that was really something. And Sweden is one of the countries that trust each other the most. Why is it that Swedes trust each other that much? There are many explanations, I guess, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we used to live in small communities. Small communities spread across our long and vast country. You knew if you broke a conference, the neighbors will hear about it, and someone who breaks a conference can't be relied on. Keeping promises therefore became a valuable quality for Swedes living separated geographically. I would say that even today, a handshake means much more than a 100-page contract in business. Today, our legacy companies are joined by new innovators and entrepreneurs. Fortunately, they are as global and as ambitious with their plans to create new super companies. To quote one of our own Swedish entrepreneurs, we must aspire to build and back more super companies that can raise the bar and act as inspiration. This is why we are here, because we are as curious and open-minded as those who came before us. We remain on our mission to discover, enable, inspire, and scale great products and services globally, and find new friends that we have done this week. I could not be more proud of the delegation that the fellowship has convened on this trip. And I would like to leave you with a final reflection from us all. We are so grateful for the reception that we have had since our arrival. We have met amazing people and amazing companies. And I can assure you that our minds are full of ideas, insights, and knowledge from our interactions with you guys. However, it is also in moments like these that we should feel grateful for our countries, their commitment to democracy and pledge to protect our liberties and our freedom to make our own choices, values that should be self-evident in every country. We should never take our strong shared values for granted. We should safeguard them, and we should pass them along to next generations. Finally, thank you, America, that you took care of us 150 years ago, and that you continue to be a good friend to Sweden. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Royal Highness, Madam Ambassador, Eric, friends of Sweden, I must start my comments by a mild amendment to the ambassador's speech. And, usually we don't like controversy here in America, of course, but I have a small amendment. She noted that there might be 200,000 people of Swedish ancestry in the state of Washington. That's factually not accurate. Actually, there are only 200,000 people who are not Swedish ambassadors. And they are Norwegians. So, and Eric has to deal with them. So, and he's doing a great job. Eric, what a wonderful facility. This is a joy. Normally when a governor welcomes a foreign entourage, and this is an extremely eclectic group of entrepreneurs, I looked at some of your businesses and the like, normally you would want to extol the virtues of one's state. So normally the governor would want you to go home and think, Washington, mycket bra. That's what we'd want. That's not what I want tonight. I want to say, Sweden tack så mycket. And I mean that very deeply for what Sweden has done for my family, myself, my state, and for the United States. And I want to tell you why I feel deeply about that, and it's personal with me. In 1911, a starving Swede left and got on a train and bought a ticket as far as he could go west, which is Yakima, Washington, about 130 miles east of here, got off the train, figured out what he was going to do, took 6 years to plant an apple orchard, finally built a house, and then brought his family over. And then Trudy and I got to raise our 3 children in the apple orchards because of a Swedish immigrant. That was 1911. 1950, a Swedish immigrant named Swede Lindqvist took my dad under his arm and taught him how to be a biology teacher and a basketball coach. 1972, you allowed me as a University of Washington student to go to Stockholm to the first United Nations Conference on the Environment and study the energy use policies of Stockholm, Sweden, so that we could learn how to have clean energy and have a better environment. And that started me on a 5 decades so far quest to try to promote clean energy policies. And I'm proud to say that Washington State today has the best climate change policies in the United States, in part because of what I learned in Stockholm, Sweden. And I want to thank, we have 2 legislators, Mark Elias and Reuven Carlyle here. Their leadership has been incredible to allow me to be very un-Swedish, to brag just for a moment about our climate policies. That's 1950, that's 1972. We go up to 2018. We have a young woman start a climate strike at her school in Sweden, Greta Thunberg, to light the ambitions and the demands of older generations to respond to climate change, which is one of, and I'll come to maybe the second most inspirational person for a moment. But if you had to pick the most inspirational person in the globe, in my book, in the last several years, it's a Swede, Greta Thunberg. She has lit a fire of recognition of the generational responsibility to her generation, of my generation. And it has penetrated beyond all imagination about what this one person can do. And she lit her colleagues. I met a young woman who was 14. She was sitting out, I was walking by the UN a couple of years ago, and she was just sitting on the park bench holding her climate change sign. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm skipping school Friday. I'm with Greta." And that's happening all over the United States and all over the world. Thank you to Sweden for giving that young leader to the world. But I want to say something about her role and the role of the entrepreneurs who are here tonight. She has a role of lighting the flame. The legislators, the governors, the presidents have a role of policies. But the entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to deliver the technologies and the industrial capacity to build a clean energy future for the world. And our ability to succeed on that is dependent on your entrepreneurship and your ability to innovate to create these new technologies. And I've seen it on my own eyes where we've got new battery companies, in Eastern Washington the largest solar cell manufacturer and the most efficient in the Western Hemisphere in Bellingham, Washington. Solar panels going up in southeastern Washington. I'm seeing that innovation. And it is entrepreneurs who are making this happen. And I actually co-authored a book about 10 years ago on this subject because I recognize it's not just the politicians, it's the business people who are going to bring a vision and are going to borrow all the money they can from their uncles and their cousins and put it in a cheap warehouse and come up with a new product. So how about a round of applause for the entrepreneurs here tonight from Sweden, because I know they're going to do good work. And I know you're going to go home and say, that crazy governor from Washington asked me to find a way to get involved in this revolution. And I know you're going to do that to help save my grandchildren that are officially the cutest grandchildren in the state of Washington. So I want to thank you for your assistance. So that's 2018. Then you get to 2022. We have a horrendous, atrocious, unbelievably malevolent act by Vladimir Putin and the suffering people in the Ukraine. And the people of Sweden, which, might be a little different than maybe some of their history, immediately stood up to the plate and sent ordnance to the people of the Ukraine. And that is not always easy to do under these circumstances. The Swedish people stepped up already, and already Vladimir Putin has not won in the Ukraine. The people are suffering in the Ukraine, but he has already lit a fire in the world that believes in free speech, that believes in freedom of religion, that believes in democracy, to become much more committed and united already. And the people of Sweden, in making the decision to send that ordinance to Ukraine, demonstrated that. Now, I would never want to meddle in the affairs of another democracy. I know Sweden is considering joining NATO, and that'll be a decision for the Swedish people. But I can tell you this, if Sweden decides to join NATO, it will be a clear defeat for Vladimir Putin, and I think that would be a wonderful thing. So I'm hopeful. I'm expressing some little hope that Sweden goes to that, makes that decision. But whatever the decision they've made, they are already in this, and they've already shown a commitment to the cause of liberty. And we Washingtonians take our hats off to the people of Sweden. So for multiple decades, I just want to say tack så mycket to the people in what you've done. I do believe we are very, very similar. And when I look at, people ask why our policies are so frankly progressive in the state of Washington. We got the best health care. We have long-term care. We have family medical leave. We have the highest minimum wage. We have the best climate change policies. We have the greenest transportation policies in the United States. It is in large part because of the people in Sweden who came here and established a culture. The first publicly sort of oriented healthcare in the United States was a thing called group health in Seattle, Washington. And that, I believe, was because of the culture of community commitment that came from the people from Sweden. So thank you. I hope you enjoy your time. Tack så mycket.
It's a great honor, of course, for me to participate in today's recognition of Mr. Nelson, or Eric, maybe we should call you, who is the director and CEO of the National Nordic Museum here in Seattle. His Royal Highness Prince Daniel is presenting Mr. Nelson with the Knight First Class of the Royal Order of the Polar Star in recognition of his many years of dedicated work and strong leadership in creating this outstanding museum that we have gathered in today. His Majesty King Carl XVI of Gustav conferred the order to Mr. Nelson back in 2020. But because of the pandemic, today is the first opportunity to officially present it. And if you would have asked me in 2008, when I was the Deputy Ambassador to Washington, if Mr. Nelson here would get an order for building a museum, I would have said, no way. He came to my office with a blueprint of the building, saying that it would cost, I don't know how many millions? 60. And of course, coming from Sweden and not fully being aware of the fantastic fundraising culture and sponsorship and generosity in the United States, I was like, yeah, Looks interesting, but of course, you made it come true. Eric's family emigrated from Sweden to the United States to seek new opportunities, just as the Prince talked about before. But their Swedish heritage and values remained an important part of their lives. Their passion and commitment to their Nordic heritage were also passed down to you, Eric. In 2019, this is a man that has been decorated before. Yes. In 2019, Eric was the recipient of the Swedish American of the Year Award from the Vasa Order of America. And in 2020, the Nordiska Museet, the Nordic Museum in Stockholm, honored Mr. Nelson with the Hazelius Medal in Gold, the highest award presented in Sweden for the preservation and promotion of Swedish cultural heritage. So, Eric joined the National Nordic Museum in January 2008, and then half a year later in my office, and has been overseeing its growth from a small local heritage site into a renowned center where Nordic culture, values and innovations are showcased and shared with a wider community. This impressive museum tells the story of 12,000 years of Nordic history and culture. It's the only museum in the United States that highlights the impact and influence of Nordic values and innovation in contemporary society. And Eric, you have, in the most magnificent way, succeeded in uniting the Nordic countries' strength and values through the museum's architecture, exhibition programs, and events. And for this, the museum has received numerous awards since its grand opening in 2018. And today, the museum is a hub for Nordic public diplomacy in the United States and a valued collaborative partner for the Embassy of Sweden and many other Swedish-American organizations. So the creation of this Nordic platform is, of course, an important achievement and one that the Nordics and Americans alike will continue to use for years to come. It enables us to invite our US friends and colleagues to celebrate our strong relations. So, Eric, it is an honor working with you to strengthen the strong bonds between Sweden and the United States. And today, His Royal Highness Prince Daniel and myself, together with all our guests and your colleagues at the National Nordic Museum, would like to recognize all your hard work. And thank you for your passionate work on behalf of Sweden and all the Nordic countries. And thank you for your creative and constructive ideas that made the dream of a Nordic meeting place here in Seattle a reality. So with these words, Your Royal Highness Prince Daniel, may I ask you to bestow the Royal Order of the Polar Star to Mr. Eric Nilsson.
This incredible honor really doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone that made this museum a possibility. So I sincerely thank everyone who was a part of this. And so many people were instrumental, from Lars Johnson and Alan Osberg and others. Again, this museum and the dream of this museum would not have been possible without the support of a huge community. So this honor really goes to you and those that were involved in creating this fantastic facility. So thank you, and again, I don't know that I deserve this honor, but I am grateful for it, and I greatly appreciate it. And then I have to step back a minute to smaller things, and not really smaller things, but I need to acknowledge Lars Johnson and our good friend David Holheimer, who have actually supported the creation of this dinner tonight. So thank you to you as sponsors, but again, most importantly, thank you to you and to you for this fantastic honor. Again, not deserved, but greatly appreciated. And thank you to the entire community that made this museum possible. It is a platform to celebrate Swedish and Nordic contributions, not only here in the US, but around the world. So thank you for this, and thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of the evening. And the museum will be open for a while, so don't miss the most spectacular exhibition this museum has ever hosted that's here from the National Museum in Stockholm. So if you do have a chance, you can't take wine back there, but once you're finished with your dessert, please feel free to meander to the back and take a look at a spectacular exhibition. Welcome to Seattle, and thank you for coming this evening.